Remakes are a wonderful thing in the gaming industry. They allow a game to reach a new audience, they're a shot of nostalgia in the arm of pre-existing fans, and they give developers the opportunity to make the definitive way to experience their title thanks to hindsight and feedback. When it comes to Pokémon remakes, they're also a surefire way to generate a metric ton of money. But every Pokémon remake occupies a different spot on the spectrum of quality. You have the good, the fine, and the why did I spend 100 hours on this, I hate myself. Pokemon's future plans became a lot less obvious when they skipped Generation 5 and went straight to 6 with Legend ZA. But since every generation up until now has gotten remakes, 2 in the case of Kanto, Black and White will eventually get their time in the sun. I have no clue when that'll be, but I want to give my thoughts about what I want to see in the remakes. But before looking at the new, I think it's better to look back at the original game so that we have a frame of reference for what these remakes need to be. So let's go back to 2011. The year that we all met Tepig, Game of Thrones started, and John Cena announced the death of Bin Laden at WWE Extreme Rules.
We have caught and compromised to a permanent end Osama Bin Laden.
Simpler times. The dual release of mainline Pokemon games always comes with conflicting titles. Pokemon Sun and Moon, Pokemon Sword and Shield, Pokemon Cock and Ball. But with Generation 5, Game Freak decided to go back to their roots. No rubies, diamonds or any other fancy gems. We're going back to basic colour theory with Pokemon Black and White. For years after their initial release, Black and White were controversial games. They had a more mature storyline, focusing on the morality of whether Pokemon were partners or tools.
Today's subject, slavery.
The Pokédex was restricted to brand new Pokemon, with those from previous generations being locked behind the postgame. And this was only exacerbated by the way some people felt about the designs of some of the new Pocket Mongrels. A lot of people felt that some of the new Pokemon designs were a bit lazy, with some being homages to beloved Kanto lines and others being based on inanimate objects like ice cream and trash. Way too many people were saying that old Pokemon designs are better than this lazy bollocks. I mean, really? Generation 1 brought us the intricate and well-developed ideas of fish and crab, and you draw the line at sentient ice cream? I'm not going to argue that Unova doesn't have its weaker dex entries. Every generation has to have some filler Pokemon, but this makes the good designs even more iconic, and Unova has more than enough to make up for its shortcomings. Haxorus, Crocodile, Darmanitan, Escavalier and Palpitoad. And on top of these masterclasses of fictional creature design, Black and White also brought other great things to the series, like animated sprites.
I'm animated! I'm alive!
And a song that plays on repeat in my head all the time and has only been getting louder since 2011.
Leave me alone!
These days, Generation 5 is beloved by the fandom because they're genuinely good games. Also, every new generation has to go through the Pokemon fan cycle. I give it less than 12 months until people are nostalgic for Sun and Moon. Revisiting the original Black and White games nowadays is really refreshing. They're probably my top 3 games in the entire series. But now that we've set the scene with the old games, time to move on to what I want to see out of the remakes. Just like cigarettes, my opinions come in all kinds of flavours, so I'm going to group them into categories just for the sake of structure. And I'll start out with the more boring angle, the gamey shit. Things in this section all relate to the less glamorous aspects of the games, like game design, performance, frame rates, and quality of life stuff. Let's get the obvious one out of the way first. The games need to function on a technical level. It really should go without saying, but considering the state that Scarlet and Violet released in, I kinda need to add it here. The Paldea games run like piss, and the guy who got a hold of Legend ZA early says it has its issues. I'm praying that it's just a test build, but who knows at this point. I tried to make a sandwich in Scarlet the other day and it just disappeared. The game should release on the Switch too, so I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for a smooth frame rate, decent textures, and a crash-free experience. Moving on to the stuff that's just slightly higher than the bare minimum, difficulty options. I said slightly. The only time difficulty options have ever been implemented in the series was in Black 2 and White 2. Completing the games would grant you a key which could be sent to another game to unlock a new difficulty mode. Black 2 unlocked Challenge Mode, and White 2 unlocked Easy Mode. If you ask me which game series needed an Easy Mode the least, I'd probably say Dark Souls. But if you ask me which game series needed it the second least, yeah, I'd say Pokemon. I think adding a difficulty option would make the games a lot more appealing to series veterans. Give the gym leaders higher levels, more diverse teams, or even competitive sets like they had in BDSP, which is one of the only good things about those games. And to finish off this section, a quality of life change that I'm hoping they add, HM removal. I don't care if they give you tools to get around obstacles or ride Pokemon like Sun and Moon. HMs just need to stay in the past. Now we get on to the fun shit. expanding the lore of the Pokemon universe. Most box art legendaries are part of a trio. Gen 4 had the Creation Trio, Gen 3 had the Weather Trio, and Black and White plays host to the Tau Trio, consisting of Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem. In the Generation 5 games, we learned that these three Pokemon were originally one insanely powerful dragon Pokemon, used by twin heroes to create the Unova region. But as brothers do, the twin heroes disagreed with each other. The older brother sought truth and the younger brother sought ideals. They decided to split the dragon into two Pokemon, Reshiram and Zekrom, with an empty husk being left in the form of Kyurem. Adding a storyline involving this original dragon would be awesome, and to the executive at the Pokemon company who's definitely watching, I don't know, you can put it on cards and make plushies and shit. I think including this in a Delta episode-esque story, maybe called the Grey Chapter, involving Colress would be a great addition to the game. Speaking of brothers, can we please reunite Ingo and Emmett? All of the comics that people drew after Legends Arceus make me sad and I don't like it. In Legends Arceus, the player is brought to the past through a space-time distortion and is left stranded there. But someone else is also brought to the past. Ingo, one of the bosses of the battle subway in Unova. You took this man who loves trains and trapped him in a world without trains. I think having a space-time rift appear in a cave somewhere would be a great way for the player to find Hisuian forms, rescue Ingo, and complete the line of genies with Enamorus. Or just cram it back in the past.
Oh, no, you don't. What are you doing?
I think another way Unova could be expanded is by integrating the mythical Pokemon through side stories. Meloetta, Genesect, Victini, and Keldeo were all restricted to events in the original games. I think event Pokemon ruined the collecting experience to a certain extent. They've started becoming more available in recent games, so I'm hoping they're added to the remakes in a creative way. Something cool that the Johto and Hoenn remakes did was adding new Pokemon to the original storyline, like giving trainers access to Mega Evolution and allowing the player to access new evolutions to old Pokemon. With Legends ZA set to bring Mega Evolution back, maybe it's time to have more Unovan Megas to go alongside Ordino. And I don't know, maybe make them worth actually using. Mega Evolution is great, but something that's featured in almost every game since 2017 is regional variants. I'll admit, I was apprehensive when I saw Long Executor. I kinda half expected Girthy Diglett. But I think that regional variants are one of the best things that Pokemon has added in recent memory. They're all animals at the end of the day, so it makes sense that they'd adapt to wildly different environments. I think Unovan forms of Pokemon introduced after Generation 5 would be a really cool way to make the region feel fresh. Unova is based on New York, so I think some regional forms that could work are a jazz-inspired Toxtricity and a bagel version of Dashbun. Pokemon Sleep is a more recent release for the Pokemon franchise, but it's not the series' first venture into the world of Naptime. Back when Black and White first came out, there was a website called Pokemon Dream World. Players were able to put their Pokemon to sleep to get items, play minigames, and obtain Pokemon with their hidden abilities. Dream World was shut down in 2014 and hasn't been accessible since. Making it a side mode or mechanics similar to Pokejobs and Galar could work. I just think leaving this piece of Black and White lost to time is a missed opportunity. The Indigo Disc DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet saw players return to the Unova region. While exploring Blueberry Academy might be a bit boring since we already saw it in Gen 9, I think adding some of the characters from the DLC would be a fun idea. Maybe just the odd mention of the Academy, and some cameos of characters already related to prominent Unovan figures, like Clay's daughter Lacey and Drayden's grandson Drayton. Just adding to the end of this section, can we get some bare minimum aesthetic changes please? None of that faithful Playmobil shit that BDSP pulled. Bring the art style up to modern standards, either through a style similar to Legends, Paldea, or maybe even something new. Maybe HD 2D like Octopath Traveler. I don't care, just no more of this. And now we're on to the big stuff. Expanding the lore, adding difficulty options, making the games playable. Nah, Cynthia. I was 10 years old in 2011, and I was playing Pokemon Black fresh from finishing Soul Silver. I thought I was a Pokemon expert. I knew my type matchups. I was fucking untouchable. I made my way through the Unova region like it was nothing, and I was enjoying the post-game content. And I made my way to a nice little beachside resort in Undella Town. I walked into a random house and... Listen, I've never been formally diagnosed with PTSD, but that piano reduces me to a sniveling mess trying to find out who pissed my pants. Cynthia was done right in BDSP. Her original team was iconic, but giving them opposable thumbs and the ability to hold items like berries, leftovers, and flame orbs is the Pokemon equivalent of a war crime. And I want more. Make her even more terrifying this time. And last but not least, just delete Watchog.